Disney Channel promised sparkles and sass, but sometimes it served pure psychological horror in between commercials for Go-Gurt. Welcome to Cringe Capsule, the history of a time before algorithms broke our brains. Remember when Disney Channel was supposed to be the safe channel? The place where the biggest scare was whether Lizzie McGuire would get caught cheating on a math test or if Raven's psychic vision would backfire again? Yeah, about that. Because for an entire generation of millennials, Disney Channel occasionally ditched the glitter and gave us straight-up horror. We're talking ghost brides in mirrors, demon-possessed bellhops, and nightmares served with a side of nuggets. Somehow, these unassuming kid shows dropped scenes that had us sleeping with the lights on, clutching our blankies like we were starring in Paranormal Activity, Juicebox Edition. This episode, we're diving deep into the haunted vault of "Wait, Disney really aired that?" moments. From Bloody Mary seances in Suite 613 to animated clowns that made us cry into our chicken nuggets, these were the scenes that scarred us, and the moments we still swap stories about with that shared millennial look of, you saw that too, right? So buckle up, light a flashlight under your chin, and prepare for some nostalgic trauma. This is Memory Hole, and today we're unlocking the vault of Disney Channel nightmare fuel. Bloody Mary in the Suite Life, Ghost of Suite 613, 2005. Ah yes, The Suite Life of Zack and Cody, the harmless, chaotic twin comedy about room service shenanigans and hijinks in a fancy hotel. Nothing sinister there, right? Wrong. Because one fateful evening in 2005, Disney Channel said, "Let's traumatize some children," and aired The Ghost of Suite 613, their unofficial take on the Bloody Mary urban legend, but with more seances, demon possession, and hotel bellhops acting like they just got possessed by Satan's unpaid intern. Let's set the scene. Zack and Cody, those little blonde chaos gremlins, are dared by London and Maddie to spend the night in the haunted suite. Suite 613. Already spooky. It's like the room 237 of the Tipton Hotel. They laugh it off because boys will be boys. Until the lights go out, the ghost stories come alive, and things get real fast. Now, if you were a tween at the time, you remember this vividly. Flickering lights, candles everywhere, and Esteban, the lovable bellhop, suddenly speaking in a voice that sounds like he's been gargling lava and vengeance. He's possessed, y'all. He's channeling a ghost named Irene. Zack starts seeing things. And then, boom, the mirror scene. A translucent ghost bride appears right behind him. I don't care how old you are now, that jump scare moment still lives rent-free in your nightmares. This was Disney Channel, not The Exorcist. We were expecting pillow fights, not Poltergeist. What made this episode so scary wasn't just the visuals, though shout out to the ghost makeup team for going way too hard. It was the unexpected tonal whiplash. 1 second you're laughing at Mosby's one-liners, the next you're bracing for a demon to climb out of the mirror and drag you to the underworld. For many of us, this was our first real taste of fear. That, I don't know why I'm scared, but I am, and now I sleep with a nightlight again feeling. It introduced a generation to the Bloody Mary myth in the safest way possible, filtered through Zack and Cody, and still terrifying. And don't act like you didn't test it out with your friends the next day. Say Bloody Mary 3 times in the bathroom mirror at midnight. Yeah, that ended in someone crying and someone else pretending they totally saw a ghost. Probably at a sleepover. Probably after eating 14 fruit roll-ups. To this day, The Ghost of Suite 613 remains one of Disney Channel's most infamous episodes. The kind of thing that pops up in Reddit threads and Halloween retrospectives with headlines like, "Disney really let us watch this?" Yes they did. And we loved it. Eventually, maybe, kind of, after years of therapy. Don't Look Under the Bed, 1999. The DCOM that was too scary. Okay, let's talk about the Disney Channel original movie that crossed the line. Like, fully sprinted past the line, kicked it into a bottomless pit, and cackled on its way down. Ladies and gents, and children still recovering from repressed trauma, let's give a haunted round of applause to Don't Look Under the Bed, Disney. We're making a movie about imaginary friends. Also Disney, But what if one of them goes full demonic boogeyman with glowing eyes, razor claws, and an unquenchable thirst for chaos? Yes, this actually happened. In 1999, Disney Channel rolled out what was supposed to be a spooky fun Halloween movie, but instead unleashed what can only be described as junior-level psychological horror disguised as family entertainment. The story follows Frances, your average overachieving teen who's being gaslit by supernatural events. Alarm clocks go haywire, eggs pelt her teacher's car, her brother starts aging backward, and she's blamed for all of it. Enter Larry, a zany imaginary friend only she can see, and things escalate from quirky to hellmouth in record time. Turns out, Larry's turning into a boogeyman, and not like a Scooby-Doo villain with a bad wig. No, we're talking tall, skeletal, yellow-eyed, Freddy Krueger butt-for-kids boogeyman, one that literally drags Frances under her bed into a nightmare world filled with haunted carousel horses and abandoned toys whispering in the dark. This wasn't spooky. This was what the actual fuck Disney? At one point, the boogeyman slithers out from beneath the bed, limbs cracking, nails sharp enough to open a can of soup, and hisses with a voice that sounds like broken glass and unprocessed childhood trauma. This thing looked like it wandered off the set of Pan's Labyrinth, not a family network with a wand logo and tween karaoke interstitials. And the twist? The boogeyman was her old imaginary friend all along, corrupted by neglect and growing up too fast. Excuse me, that's deep. That's Pixar-level metaphorical trauma, and apparently too much for the average household, because after 2006, Disney stopped airing it altogether. That's right, and this DCOM got low-key banned from reruns. Parents wrote in like, hey, little Tyler hasn't slept since October. Can you maybe not? It was only the second Disney Channel movie to ever get a TV PG rating, and honestly, should have been TV Jesus, are you sure? But here's the twist of our own. A lot of us millennials ended up loving this movie. Maybe not at the time, when we were crying under a blanket and swearing off beds forever, but later, in retrospect, we appreciated the vibes. It didn't talk down to us. It trusted us to handle a real story. It had stakes. It had makeup prosthetics that probably cost more than the entire budget of Pixel Perfect. And now, Don't Look Under the Bed is a cult classic. It's on Disney+. There are adult rewatches and Reddit threads with titles like, "This movie made me emo before I knew what that was." "It's our generation's badge of courage," "A battle scar," "A test of nerves." Disney channeled pure Goosebumps meets Tim Burton energy. And yeah, they backed off afterward. But for one brief, shining, and utterly terrifying moment, they let the darkness win. The Snow White Witch and other animated terrors, classic Disney moments that sent us hiding behind the couch. Let's be honest, before CGI monsters and found footage ghosts, the first time many of us felt pure dread was from a cartoon. Not a horror movie, not a Halloween special. A Disney classic from the wholesome era. The same studio that gave us talking mice and singing candlesticks also gave us some of the most terrifying imagery ever hand-drawn. Enter the evil queen from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. To this day, nothing hits quite like that transformation scene. The queen muttering incantations, swirling a poison potion, and slowly morphing into a wild-eyed hag with a wart the size of a gumdrop. Green smoke, thunder crashing, rats scurrying. Her once regal eyes go full demonic chihuahua. Her hands twist into claws. She lets out this guttural laugh like she's summoning Lucifer himself. And remember, we were like 5, watching this on a chunky VHS tape, eating cereal, completely unaware we were about to see what fear felt like, and the trauma parade didn't end there. Shortly after the transformation, Snow White flees through a forest that clearly went to therapy afterward. Trees grow arms and grab her, faces form in the bark, logs turn into crocodile jaws, the forest floor opens up to swallow her whole. This wasn't animation, this was a stress dream. Now, fast forward to Pinocchio. You're vibing with a wooden boy, a singing cricket, and all seems well. Then you get to Pleasure Island, and suddenly it's body horror o'clock. The iconic moment? Pinocchio's friend Lampwick grows donkey ears and starts braying in sheer panic. He screams, "Mama!" as he transforms into a literal beast. It's Kafka for kids. And again, This was billed as family entertainment. Walt Disney himself once said that kids can handle a little fear if there's a happy ending. And sure, fine. These movies wrap up with songs and smiles, but the psychological detours along the way, let's just say many of us became way too aware of mortality and betrayal before we hit second grade. And we haven't even mentioned Fantasia's Night on Bald Mountain yet, where a literal devil named Chernabogris from a mountain and unleashes an army of tortured souls. Skeletons doing interpretive dance in a river of fire? Sure, put that right between a musical mushroom ballet and Mickey fighting brooms. Here's the thing, these scenes worked because they were scary. That's what made the happy endings matter. But as kids, we didn't understand narrative contrast. We just knew that evil hag lady with corpse hands. I'm sleeping in mom's bed for 3 days. Today, these scenes are legendary. They make the rounds on nostalgia TikTok and childhood trauma speedruns. But there's a genuine fondness there too. They were our first brushes with darkness, safe, contained, and weirdly comforting in hindsight. So yeah, Disney scarred us a little, but it also taught us something. Even in magical kingdoms, some things still go bump in the night. Tower of Terror and Disney's Dark Ride tie-ins, the ghosts that followed us home. Now, if you were a kid in the late 90s and you were feeling brave, like really brave, there was one Disney Channel original movie that dared you to sleep without a nightlight. Tower of Terror. Yes, before it was a Hollywood Studios thrill ride, it was a made-for-TV movie starring none other than Steve Guttenberg and a baby-faced Kirsten Dunst, because nothing says haunted psychological trauma like Mahoney from Police Academy investigating ghost children. Let's set the scene. It's the 1930s, a glamorous Hollywood hotel. One stormy night, a group of guests, including a little girl named Sally Shine, steps into the elevator. Lightning strikes. Boom. They're gone. Vanished. Cursed. Presumably ghosting the continental breakfast for eternity. Fast forward to the present, and Guttenberg's character, a disgraced tabloid reporter, is trying to prove the haunting is real. And he finds out, oh yes, it's very real. Ghosts, witch curses, creepy dolls, a decrepit Art Deco elevator shaft that definitely does not meet modern OSHA standards. One scene that lives rent-free in every millennial's brain? Sally Shine, the ghostly little girl in an old-timey dress, softly singing "It's Rainin', It's Pourin'" in the hallway. The acoustics, unnerving. The vibe, too much. Let's not pretend this was Oscar-caliber cinema. The effects were peak 1997, which is to say they looked like they were rendered on a haunted TI-83 calculator. But that only added to the off-kilter spookiness. There's something about mid-budget Disney horror that's scarier because it's slightly janky. And let's not forget the ride it was based on. If you ever actually went on Tower of Terror at the parks, you know the anticipation in that elevator was pure dread. The lights flicker, the ghostly narrator says something about your destiny, then the doors open to a hell dimension of screaming guests, and drop. Your soul leaves your body. You question everything, including your bladder control. The synergy between the ride and the movie created this uncanny little universe where the story didn't end when the screen faded to black. It continued in theme parks. It continued in your dreams. It continued when you stared at hotel elevators a little too long in real life and wondered, what if it opens and there's her? Tower of Terror might not have been the most traumatizing Disney scare of all time, but it earns a solid A+ in creepy ambiance. It was Disney showing us that they could go dark and that they knew their young viewers kind of liked it, because let's be honest, we all had that one friend who was like, it's not scary, while clearly sweating through their limited 2 hoodie. And that friend was lying. Are You Afraid of the Dark? On Disney. The times Nick and Disney both gave us the willies. Okay, confession time. If you've ever sworn up and down that Are You Afraid of the Dark aired on Disney Channel, you're not alone and you're not totally wrong. Because back in the day, childhood cable TV was basically one giant soup of reruns, syndication, and deep confusion. And somewhere between Disney Halloween marathons and Nickelodeon late-night blocks, this show creeped into our collective memory and permanently parked there. Let's set the record straight. Are You Afraid of the Dark was a Nickelodeon original, but its eerie aesthetic, urban legends, and preteen existential dread totally aligned with the vibe Disney Channel was almost brave enough to touch. So much so that to this day, the two networks' spooky outputs are often emotionally filed in the same brain folder labeled "Do Not Watch Alone After 8 p.m." This show was the gold standard of childhood horror. It didn't pull punches. It didn't care that we were 9. It was like Goosebumps' older, meaner cousin, the one who smoked behind the gym and told you the real reason you don't say Bloody Mary in the mirror. Every episode started the same way. A bunch of impossibly cool Canadian teens, known as the Midnight Society, gathered around a fire in the woods to tell scary stories. They'd throw some magic dust in the flames, say "submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society," and suddenly you were locked into a 24-minute descent into pure paranoia. Highlights? Oh, we've got highlights. Zeebo the Clown, a cigar-smoking ghost clown who haunts a funhouse and straight up steals your nose. Honk honk. More like nope nope. The Ghastly Grinner, a blue-skinned comic book villain with an ear-to-ear grin who literally melts people's faces into maniacal laughter. Show that to a kid today, and they'd file an HR complaint against the entire 90s. The Dollhouse episode, a girl gets trapped inside a miniature dollhouse where porcelain dolls stare blankly and try to assimilate her into their furniture. Excuse me while I scream into a decorative pillow. But here's the wild part. Some of us legit caught these reruns during Disney's Halloween programming blocks or on random family channels that mixed in Nickelodeon content. So for years, kids were out here assuming Disney produced these demonic bedtime stories. And honestly, Disney kind of wishes they did, because this show, in many ways, was a precursor to every dark tone Disney attempt that followed: So Weird Tower of Terror, the Haunted Hotel Room Sweet Life episode. It showed there was a market for spooky coming-of-age tales, that kids didn't need constant glitter and laugh tracks, that we were ready to stare into the abyss, as long as it aired before bedtime. Millennials don't just remember Are You Afraid of the Dark? We revere it. It wasn't just a scary show, it was a social milestone. Watching it made you feel older, braver, and just a little more twisted. Like you earned your horror merit badge. It's why, to this day, so many of us are deeply comfortable watching Hereditary alone in the dark while eating Cheez-Its. We were trained for this. So no, it wasn't technically Disney, but it might as well have been. And that confusion, that spooky, scrambled nostalgia where networks blur and ghost stories linger longer than they should, that's exactly what makes it part of the Nightmare Fuel canon. So Weird. 1999 to 2001. Disney's Supernatural series, a weekly dose of paranormal on Disney Channel. Okay, quick question. Did Even Stevens ever have an episode where Ren tries to summon her dead father through a haunted modem and gets chased by a banshee? No? That's because So Weird wasn't playing games. Before the Disney Channel was all synchronized dance numbers and glittery tween romances, they dropped a show so deeply unsettling that it felt like someone slipped a Twilight Zone spec script into the middle of the Lizzie McGuire lineup, and nobody stopped them. So Weird followed Fiona Fi Phillips, a teen girl with a dead dad, a hacker's brain, and an insatiable need to expose the paranormal. She traveled the country on tour with her rock star mom, played by Mackenzie Phillips, yes, that Mackenzie Phillips, and used her downtime to hunt ghosts, decode ancient prophecies, and flirt with aliens. Casual. And listen, this show got dark. Let's talk about the Banshee episode. This wasn't just a wailing lady in a Halloween costume. This was a gaunt, white-faced wraith that appeared out of the mist to shriek bloody murder, warning that someone would soon die, on Disney Channel. Meanwhile, in That's So Raven, someone was probably falling off a table in a pancake costume. Another episode featured a boy ghost, trapped on a haunted train, trying to send messages through flickering lights and song lyrics. It was weirdly sad and unnerving and introspective, and if you thought Disney was gonna resolve these plots with hugs and cookies, no ma'am. So Weird leaned into the ambiguity. Sometimes the endings were bittersweet, sometimes they were just ominous. The show's tone was heavy, not just in a horror sense, but emotionally. Fi wasn't a typical Disney protagonist. She was grieving her father. She was curious about the afterlife. She was low-key emo. The show didn't shy away from themes like death, trauma, alienation, and spiritual belief. You could practically hear My Chemical Romance forming in the background. For many viewers, So Weird was their first brush with serious sci-fi and supernatural themes. It was like X-Files, Tween Division, and it didn't talk down to its audience. It expected kids to follow serialized plots, ponder moral ambiguity, and sit in the discomfort of the unknown, and we ate it up, and of course this couldn't last. Disney eventually panicked, replaced Fi with a more cheerful blonde girl named Annie, and shifted the show's vibe from paranormal grief opera to folklore karaoke hour. Spoiler alert, it bombed. Fans bailed. The cult was broken. But for those first 2 seasons, magic. Dark, brooding, existential magic. Today, millennials still talk about So Weird like it was some kind of secret society initiation. Like, oh, you watched Even Stevens? Cute. I was over here decoding Ghost Morse code and crying about metaphysical loss at age 11. It's not just nostalgia, it's reverence. Because So Weird dared to believe that kids could handle real stories, real scares, and real questions. And in doing so, it gave us a show that was actually weird, actually scary, and actually unforgettable. Welcome to the Midnight Society of Disney Channel. The password is, Fi was right. The truth is out there. The Brave Little Toaster, 1987. The nightmare scene that scarred 80s, 90s kids. Here's the thing. No one expects to get psychologically wrecked by a movie about a brave little kitchen appliance. But surprise, you've just entered the emotional kill zone of the Brave Little Toaster, aka the reason so many millennials have unresolved fear responses to clowns, vacuums, and the concept of obsolescence. Let's rewind. You're a sweet, unsuspecting child plopped on the carpet with your juice box, ready for a cute animated story about household gadgets going on an adventure. Fun, wholesome, totally harmless, right? Enter the clown dream, and yes, a literal clown, in a nightmare, wearing full firefighter gear, with a face like he just crawled out of Stephen King's recycling bin. This red-nosed menace shows up mid-dream and whispers one single word in a raspy serial killer tone, run. Suddenly the toaster, our main character, is engulfed in flames. There's smoke, there's chaos, and then boom, a demonic clown lunges at the screen, followed by a sequence where the toaster gets sucked into a giant evil vacuum from hell. This isn't slapstick, this is pure, high-octane childhood terror. And to make it worse, that's not even the only disturbing scene in the movie. Oh no. Later we're treated to a scrapyard where sentient cars sing about their lives before getting crushed to death by a junkyard magnet. One car literally sings its own eulogy before being compacted into a cube, and you watch that at age 6 while eating spaghetti Oz. What kind of emotional core workout were we on in the 90s? Now, in fairness, the Brave Little Toaster is brilliant, it's layered, it's poignant, and it's practically an existential crisis in animated form. The toaster and his appliance friends, a lamp, a blanket, a vacuum, and a radio, set off to reunite with their long-lost owner. And the journey? It's about abandonment, self-worth, obsolescence, and the fear of being left behind. But when you're a kid, you're not picking up on the metaphor. You're just trying to recover from seeing a nightmarish clown whisper run, and then watching a vacuum suck the soul out of your favorite appliance. It's no wonder so many kids couldn't finish the movie. It was marketed like it belonged on a shelf next to Care Bears and the Rescuers, but spiritually, it was one eerie clown away from being directed by David Lynch. Here's the wildest part. Disney aired this on Disney Channel in the 90s. No warning, no context. Just, hey kids, it's time for our afternoon lineup. First up, a toaster has an existential breakdown after hallucinating a killer clown. And yet, we loved it. Today, the clown scene is a full-blown internet legend. People whisper about it in Reddit threads like it was a collective fever dream. Wait, was there really a toaster movie with a demon clown? Yes, fellow traumatized millennial, it was real, and we all lived it. And you know what? That scar tissue, it kind of made us stronger, because the Brave Little Toaster didn't coddle us. It challenged us. It said, here kid, let's talk about death, abandonment, and your deepest primal fears through the eyes of a small kitchen appliance. And somehow we're better for it. So here's to that deeply messed up dream sequence. It was terrifying, yes, but it also carved a place in our collective memory, right next to the first time we realized cartoons could hurt our feelings. And if you ever hear a whisper in the dark that says, "Run," just hope it's your toaster trying to warn you. Return to Oz, 1985. The Other Wizard of Oz, aka fuel for lifelong phobias. Okay, picture this. You're 6, maybe 7, you love The Wizard of Oz, the songs, the color, the adorable dog. Your grandma says, "Look, sweetie, there's another Oz movie." Exciting, right? Wrong. Because Return to Oz isn't a sequel. It's a psychological endurance test for children. The film opens with Dorothy, now played by baby-faced Fairuza Balk, being sent to a mental institution. Yes, a mental institution, for talking about Oz. Then what do the well-meaning adults at this Victorian house of nightmares prescribe? Oh, just a little electroshock therapy. You know, like all good family films, right off the bat, we're deep in what the actual hell territory. Dorothy escapes, because even at age 10, she knows she's not about to get zapped like a toaster, and finds herself swept back to Oz. But guess what? Oz is now a burnt-out dystopian hellscape. The yellow brick road is shattered, the Emerald City's a ruin, and all the friendly citizens, they've been turned to stone. Welcome back, kid. Hope you weren't planning to sleep tonight. But that's just the warm-up act, because soon we meet the Wheelers. Let me describe them, but know that no words truly capture the horror. Tall, gangly humanoids with wheels for hands and feet. They screech, they howl, they roll like unholy insects across concrete, chasing Dorothy through alleys while wearing nightmare fuel masks and laughing like meth-addled circus rejects. You try watching that as a second grader and not crying in the car on the way to Applebee's afterward. But wait, the trauma buffet continues because we still haven't met Princess Mombi, the true queen of absolutely not. She's elegant, she's royal, and she has a hallway full of decapitated living heads. And I don't mean statues, I mean literal human heads, blinking, breathing, that she can switch out like fashion accessories. One day she's brunette, the next day she's rocking a screaming redhead. At one point, Dorothy sneaks into the head hall and the heads wake up and scream, all of them, in unison. If you didn't pee yourself as a child, you were either asleep or made of steel. Add in the Gnome King, a stone-faced demon who eats Dorothy's friends and talks in a soothing serial killer voice. And you've got a movie that feels less like a Disney production and more like a panic attack dressed up in children's clothing, and yet, Return to Oz is incredible. Seriously. The effects are stunning. The lore is deep. The design is gorgeously disturbing. And Fairuza Balk gives a performance far beyond her years. As adults, we see the craftsmanship, the vision, the courage it took to say, hey, let's see how far we can push the boundaries of family entertainment before we break a generation. Spoiler alert, they broke us. Because if you saw Return to Oz as a kid, you didn't just watch it, you survived it. It became a war story, something you'd whisper about in gym class like, remember the heads? Oh my God, the Wheelers! It was a weird badge of honor. A moment that split your childhood into two halves, before Mombi and after Mombi. And now, we love it. We rewatch it with awe. We marvel at how Disney once greenlit a horror fantasy that's basically Pan's Labyrinth for kids, just with more claymation chickens. Return to Oz is the crown jewel of Disney Channel nightmare fuel. It didn't just scar us, it made us weird, and for that, we are eternally grateful. And there you have it, a veritable haunted house of Disney-induced childhood trauma. Who knew the same company that gave us princesses and singing crabs also gave us demonic clowns, possessed bellhops, and headless witch galleries? If you're still sleeping with the lights on tonight, honestly, same. But that's what made it magical, right? These weren't just spooky scenes, they were core memories. They bonded us on playgrounds, over Halloween marathons, and in whispered retellings at sleepovers. Disney didn't just babysit us with cartoons, it occasionally scarred us for life, and weirdly, we love it for that. If you had a flashback to any cursed moment today, or remembered a horror scene we missed, Drop it in the comments, because the internet is the new sleepover and we're swapping ghost stories all over again. Until next time, don't look under the bed. So yeah, we came for That's So Raven and left with lifelong trust issues. Like and subscribe if you too were emotionally damaged by a puppet or sound effect. This was Cringe Capsule. Your prescription for nostalgia has officially worn off.